Okay, so today we're doing two-step inequalities, and we talked about in class today on our notes how the inequality works the same as an equation. So I'm just going to work the inequality side. Basically, the steps are exactly the same whether you're solving an inequality or an equation. So here we have to do a distribute, and when you do that, you're going to get 3x plus 12, because 3 times x is 3x and 3 times 4 is 12, plus this other x, and I'm going to put a 1 in front of him just so I know how many of them I have. We have like terms here, so when you add those together, you get 4x plus 12 is greater than 20. The steps are exactly the same as if it was an equation. We subtract our 12, we get 4x is greater than 8, and then when I finally divide by 4, I end up with x is greater than 2. So just the big difference really between an equation and an inequality is the graphing. We've got, on an equation we don't graph them, but on an inequality we do. So if I was to put 2 in the center here, and then maybe have a reference number on either side, I would have an open circle and my shade would go to the right, because this symbol right here doesn't have an equal to on it. That's why we have an open circle, and then it's shaded to the right because those are numbers greater than, and it's pointing to the right. So then looking at our example problems, let's see if I can get to those. So getting to our example problems, we've got, and this one had a typo on it, sorry, this x right here should be 14, so let's put a 14 there. So we've got 14 is greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 5. Again, same solving scenario, we're trying to get the x by itself, so we're going to move the 5 by subtracting. We bring down our negative 3x and our symbol, and then do our math right here, and we end up with 9. Now I'm going to have to divide by a negative to get my answer on this, and there's kind of 2 steps here to writing our answer. First of all, since I'm dividing by a negative, my symbol is going to change direction. So instead of pointing to the right, it's now going to be pointing to the left. A less than or greater than symbol depending on which way you're reading it from. And then of course 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. However, to graph this is a perfectly acceptable answer, but to graph it, I like to have my variables on the left. That way I can use this symbol as a pointer. So I'll rewrite the answer to go this way. We call that our spatula method in class. When you flip a negative, when you flip the symbol because you divided by a negative, that's a math step. But when we fix our answer to write it in a way that makes our graphing easier, that's just a method we do for convenience. And we nicknamed that the spatula method because it's like you're scooping up underneath with a spatula and flipping the whole thing over. So our negative 3 here in the center, numbers for reference. Closed circle this time because we've got an equal to on it, and our shade will go to the right. Alright, last regular number example. We're trying to get the n all by itself, so our first step would be to add 2. And I would probably do that on the calculator. 3/8 n is less than, and when I type that in and press math enter, it's going to give me 11 over 5. Now think about it. If you add 2 plus 1/5, you're just going to get 2 and 1/5. Those combine together pretty easily, but if we take this and change it into an improper fraction, that's where our 11 over 5 comes from. When using the calculator, it's nice to have those improper fractions there a little bit easier to type in. So 3/8 n means 3/8 times n, so the opposite of times would be divide. So if I divide both sides by 3/8, again a great calculator problem, my symbol doesn't change this time. I end up with 88 over 15, which is kind of an awkward number to graph. So if I was to actually divide that out, or the step before I pressed math enter, I would have gotten, let's see, I believe it's 5.86 repeating, if my memory serves me correctly. So if I was to graph that, I don't know, I might do something like this. Put a 5 here, a 6 there, and of course 5.86 repeating would be somewhere in this neighborhood, open circle, and then shaded to the left. So this answer is fine right here. If you want to write it as that, that's okay as well. I'm pretty flexible on those with regards to fractions and decimals. This one obviously is easier for graphing purposes. All right, let's translate on number 3. Number 3 says, write an inequality and solve. So this time we won't graph it. I graphed on the other ones just so you could see a reminder example of that. 2 is smaller than, so that's going to be 2 is less than. The sum of, sum means add, so I'm going to add 3 plus 1/4 of a number, which would be 1/4 x. Subtract your 3. You get 1/4 x is greater than -1. And then this means multiply, so the opposite would be division. If I divide -1 by 1/4, I end up getting x, and my symbol is still a greater than symbol. And the answer would be -4. No flipping of the symbol this time because I didn't multiply or divide by a negative. However, I don't really like my answers written that way. I want to flip them over. And so I would write my final answer like this. If you have yours this way, it's awesome, no problem. But if I was to graph, that makes it easier for graphing purposes because the x is on the left side, and that way I can use this as a pointer symbol, and I'd know my shade would be going to the right. And then finally, a grade calculation problem. Anne scored 72, 90, 75, and 75 on 3 tests. What score does she need on the 4th test to have a minimum average of 80? So you know to find your average, you add all your grades together and divide by the total. So if I take 72 plus 90 plus 75, those are my grades, plus this mystery grade that I haven't made yet, that's my other test grade. So I now have 4 tests, and I would be dividing those by 4. If I want my minimum average to be 80, that means I want my grade to be 80 or higher. So that's going to be a greater than or equal to symbol, and that would be 80. Now, we talked about in class today how you usually do addition and subtraction first to solve equations, multiply and divide at the end. But this little 4 is kind of causing us a problem down here on the bottom. It's almost like he's a stopper, and he's causing us not to be able to do the other math we need to do in the problem. So I'm going to do this first. I'm going to simplify and add all these little guys together. So if I take 72 and I add 90 and 75, I get 239. So I'm going to simplify this to 239 plus x divided by 4 is greater than or equal to 80. Now, like I said, usually we do the adding and subtracting step first, meaning I would like to move him first. But that 4 almost serves as a blocker. It's causing us not to be able to add the 239 first. So in this case, or excuse me, to subtract the 239. So in this case, we need to go ahead and move that 4. I kind of look at this as like a compound fraction. It's got multiple steps up here on top, so we need to move this 4 guy so that we can do our math. So I'm going to multiply by 4 because he's division, and obviously the opposite would be multiply. I've got 239 plus x is greater than or equal to, and if I multiply 80 and 4, I get 320. Now I can move this guy much easier, and I think I'm going to run out of space. Let me see if I can extend my little screen here just a smidge. Oh, I lost my little extend page. Well, I may not be able to finish writing this out. Let's see if I can squeak it in there. Minus 239, just barely getting it in there on the bottom. Minus 239, I'm going to come over here to the side and write my answer. When those cancel out, I get x is greater than or equal to, and when I subtract those two guys, I get 83. Sorry about that, I ran out of room. So there is your solving two-step inequalities notes. These were taken on Monday, the 13th of September. Thanks, guys.